So thank you all for joining. I'm thrilled to welcome you all today. My name is Daniel and I'm Hospitable's Community Events Coordinator. So thank you all for coming and taking your time to be here. I'm excited to welcome you to Hospitable's fourth Hospitable Hosts Workshop with Terry Trifiletti, Jasper Rivers, Lauren Havens, and Nii Adewole, who are going to tell us how to deal with declines in inquiries and booking cancellations. So before I hand it over to Matthew, just a few housekeeping things. This masterclass will be recorded and will be available on our Hospitable YouTube channel after the webinar for you to watch it again. Regarding the questions, if you have any questions throughout the masterclass, please leave them in the Q&A section. At the end, we are going to have a dedicated Q&A session, so upvote the questions you like, and we will sure to get to them. And finally, for socials, you can see here Hospitable's social media handles. There is going to be a lot of useful, insightful content tonight, so we encourage you during this masterclass to post on your stories, tag us, tag all the participants and the speakers, and share with your friends and fellow hosts and spread the word. So without any further ado, I would like to give the floor to Matthew.
And thank you so very much, Daniel. Well, welcome all. Thank you all so very much for joining us here today. As Daniel said, my name is Matthew. I'm the VP Customers here at Hospitable. Today, we are hosting four wonderful, experienced Hospitable hosts, Terry, Jasper, Lauren, and Nii. Thank you. They're going to share with you their experience on how they've dealt with declines in inquiries and, of course, booking cancellations, because we all know cancellations happen. We'll talk more about tips on avoiding cancellations, what to do when you receive a cancellation, some of the strategies that you can utilize. And after we have that panel discussion, as Daniel mentioned, we're going to open it up for a Q&A. So you're going to see the Q&A button right down there at the bottom of the Zoom window. Feel free to open it, send over your questions, use the Q&A instead of the chat. We'll be able to manage that a bit better. And you'll also give other hosts an opportunity to upvote that. As we've done with these events in the past, we're going to be sharing a link with you later on. That's going to give you $20 off your second bill for anyone interested in testing Hospitable to see if we're the right software partner to help you grow your business. So let's go ahead and introduce the panel. We're going to go around the room. First and foremost, all panelists, you guys are great. Thank you so much for being here. Terry, we're going to get started with you. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, your hosting journey, where you are in the world, and how many units you manage.
Hi. Yes. So thank you for having me here. I was really excited to be a part of this. So I've been a super host on Airbnb, and I also manage properties on VRBO for the last just over 4 years. I started with one property in Charlotte, and it kind of grew from there. I also received my North Carolina real estate license about a year ago so that I could manage for other property investors and hosts who just didn't want to do the day-to-day work. So I'm currently at 14 properties in my management company. And yeah, it's just kind of growing from there. I don't know how big I really want to get. Right now, it's just me and my husband running the company, and we're enjoying ourselves, and left our full-time careers to do this full-time instead. So we'll see where it goes.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. I just met a host here in Portugal that they have their real estate license. So what they do is they sell the property, they manage the property, and then they sell it afterwards as well so that you can get the profit. You buy properties already with reservations sitting there. They do the design work, the everything possible end to end for investors. And it was just absolutely mind blowing. So love the real estate edition. Lauren, we'll go to you next. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself and your business.
Sure, I'm Lauren, and I operate a company called Home Havens, just like my last name. Thought I had to be cutesy with that one. And we manage 150 properties in Utah and a couple motels, and we do the real estate thing too. So I manage the design company, the cleaning company, and the management branch, and then my husband manages acquisitions in our personal portfolio. So once it's pretty, it switches over to me. But he buys and sells them and helps our owners with those sorts of things. And it's been a great ride. I've been at it for about 3.5 years now, and it's grown really quickly, and it's been awesome. And I wish I had like my team with me, because what I do is so driven by those who help me, but they're all over the world. So some are sleeping right now, some are working right now. And so I love working with my team as well.
That's amazing. That's incredible. And Lauren, when you got started with Hospitable, how many properties did you have when you got started with probably Smart B&B, I think?
Oh, yes. So yes, Smart B&B, and I still mess it up. I am one of your old true friends here.
True.
But I believe I was at like 8, 12, 14, somewhere in that number. And now we're at 150.
I've definitely followed your journey, and it's like, wow, that's absolutely incredible seeing it here, because that's the entire time I've been at Hospitable. So kudos to you. Kudos to you.
Awesome.
Yeah. Nee, down in Atlanta, right? Tell us a bit more about yourself and your hosting journey.
Absolutely. And thank you, Matthew, for the opportunity here. And thank you again, everybody, for joining. My journey is very similar, or at least how it looks like today, to Lauren and Terry. I'm a licensed realtor in Atlanta and also an investor. And I've kind of put together that full service where I manage a bunch of properties for other investors. I started with Hospitable early last year, right around the February timeframe. And I was just dipping my toe in the short-term rental market. I bought a single family with an in-law suite. And I was like, okay, I'm going to house hack this thing, live in the top, rent out the bottom. And I'm going to try this thing called Airbnb and short-term rental out and use Hospitable to manage it and see if it actually works. I was hoping to pull in about $1,500 per month, but on average have been pulling in $2,500 per month and quickly started scaling from there. And so now, to give you a breadth of the portfolio, I currently own about 4 short-term rentals and I manage an additional 12, so 16 total, and continue to grow that business. But it's been amazing and I love using the system.
That's amazing. So many similar journeys, right? I love this industry just because it's like so many people are like, yo, we're going to do this. We're doing this. We're all going to leave and try this thing and see what happens. And then you just grow your business. I've seen so many stories like that. It's so inspiring here in the space. And then last, but certainly not least, Jasper, when I got started at Hospitable, like I was like, how do I learn about the industry? And I remember reading some stuff from you way back when, and then seeing like, oh, wait a second, Pierre's got a meeting with this guy. Oh, okay, cool. So I was kind of like, you were like my first like STR. Oh, I was starstruck a little bit there on that first one, but tell the audience a bit more about yourself, if you will, Jasper.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Jasper Rivers. I'm originally from the Netherlands, where I started my first Airbnb in 2012, just over a decade ago. Time goes fast. You might know me as the host of the Get Paid for Your Pad podcast, or you might have seen the book that's behind me. But essentially, that was kind of like my claim to fame. I've done quite a bit of different things, like managing master leasing. Currently, my focus is together with my business partner Eric Miller. We started a new hospitality brand called Free Wild, where we're buying like existing vacation rental properties, old school properties in small remote markets, and we're turning them into what we call modern short-term rental businesses. So we bought our first property out in Idlewild last year, Idlewild, California. And our goal is over the next 3 to 5 years, with some investors behind us, to buy 20 to 25 of these properties and build out for each property about 10 to 15 tiny homes. So that's mainly our focus. We do have an educational company called Overnight Success that we run as well. Biggest challenge is running 2 companies at the same time.
At least there's some overlap there, but that's absolutely incredible. Yeah, it's been amazing to watch that journey as well, and what you guys are doing there. Awesome. All right, so we're gonna jump on into it. The first question I'm gonna challenge my panelists with here, and Lauren, we're gonna get started with you. What are some of the things that you've done, maybe in the past, or maybe at this point you're not focused on it so much, but when you see those inquiries start to drop, right? When you see the numbers and the reservations start to dip a little bit there on your calendar, were there any strategies, anything that you implemented or did across your portfolio there to get a little boost?
Yes, definitely. And I'm definitely still in it. I mean, more properties is sometimes also more problems, but that's okay.
Properties. That was a Biggie song, wasn't it? Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah, almost, but not quite. So I did make a list, and I have the full list. I have 25 strategies that I've used on my Instagram. It's linked just in the link tree notes if anyone needs it. But some of the ones that have been most effective for me are contacting realtors for people between selling and buying a home, or delays in building a home. I know since COVID, there have been worldwide delays in building homes, and those people need a place to stay. And price, I also noticed, isn't quite as much of an object if it is a friend referring them, right? So if their trusted advisor in their real estate purchases is sending somebody to you, I mean, you set the price. And I've really seen that there. There's a lot of talk around like travel nurses, but also traveling utility workers has been really profitable for us. So water treatment plants, at least in the US, almost all of the water treatment plant workers are transient to some extent. They'll work for anywhere from like 6 to 20 weeks somewhere, and then they'll go somewhere else, and they're just paid per diem. So really you're looking for any sort of like traveling workforce that's paid per diem that might be able to pocket a little of their per diem if they're staying at your place. Now, this only works if your place is less than per diem for your city. But that's a great one. And then oil workers is the kind of another one as well, that as a traveling workforce, it's been really strong for us. So hopefully those are like 3 ideas to give you, but if you want more, I mean, I have more. I've tried everything. I've failed at a lot, but I've tried a lot that work too.
Did anything, so you mentioned you failed. Was there anything that really stuck out to you that you've tried and just absolutely tanked for you?
Yeah, I have never done well with insurance stays. I know there's some people who talk about them. So like somebody's home, I mean, knock on wood, wherever you have it, but it burns down or something happens to it, it floods. I've never been able to get the right contacts or have a really good response, even when I have found the right contacts at insurance companies. So I don't know. If you know how, please tell me. And if not, it may not be a very profitable niche there.
That's interesting. Yeah, we're always interested in sharing, right? And even for some of the most experienced people up here. Nee, how about you? Any strategies that you come across that you're trying to increase those inquiries for your properties?
Absolutely. And I think Lauren hit on a couple main ones, but 2 that I can add to that is 1, utilize dynamic pricing if you're not already doing that, and dig a little deeper and use the seasonality function. So in the summers and the springs in Atlanta, that's really the high season. So you should be boosting your minimums, you should be boosting your base and really capitalizing on that. And then the winter time, really when you get to like November to January, is some of the low season. So you do want to incentivize more people to come by making it a little bit less during the week and things of that nature. And I've had a little different experience when it comes to talking to travel nursing agencies. And it's funny you mentioned, I actually have somebody staying at one of the properties for 30 days because their house did burn down, which is not good. But what I've done is connected with individuals like that, and also connected with the companies that are referring them, and actually put them into this little lead source that I developed as part of my realtor business. And I send them an email once a month, automated, where it highlights one of our listings saying, hey, if you need a midterm rental for one of your clients, we're more than open to doing that. And I've started to get more business from that. The only issue I'll run into is, if you have your calendar kind of open for 6 months, you're going to get bookings here and there, and you may have a booking that kind of cancels one out. If somebody needs something for 30 days and midway through there's a 3-day stay, 5-day stay, it kind of hurts a little bit, but that has been helping this season.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And building relationships, like I hear that over and over again, right? When you connect to these people, if you deliver a good service, right? If you're providing them with a quality place for them to stay, and you're working with that relationship, that person that's managing those reservations, or that person that's booking, like that's going to pay you dividends for quite a while. So building and maintaining those relationships for sure. Jasper, you've worked with a lot of different hosts here. What are some of the mistakes that you've seen from people that have led to a decline in their inquiries, right? Some things that they've actually done that have hurt their bottom line.
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. Number one is some people have a very high minimum price. This is something that we see quite often when we go into the dynamic pricing tools of our students. They'll come to us and say like, hey, I'm only 20% booked. Turns out they have like a minimum price that's just way too high for their market, right? And the idea behind this is like, oh, I don't want to rent out for less than this. And I think it's okay to have a minimum price, but if that minimum price is a lot higher than what your market, demands on average, then that's a big mistake that I see. I'd say the other thing I'd say is not optimizing your experience and your marketing to your guest avatar, right? I think that's something that we see is becoming more and more important. When I started on Airbnb 2012, you could throw anything on Airbnb. It didn't matter. You're going to get bookings, like you really didn't have to think about any of this stuff. But now there's so much supply out there, right? And so we really have to start understanding like who is that person that we actually want to attract, right? Who is the person that's going to love the experience that I'm creating here? Because you can't really do the cookie cutter type of stuff anymore. So I think that's the first step, is just really understanding, what kind of guests do I want to attract, and what are their needs, and how do I how do I optimize the whole experience so that person is going to feel like, wow, this is created for me, right? Versus just renting out the space. So it's a bit of a mindset shift, I think, that a lot of people could go through.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, there's so much supply out there. So I'm looking at these properties. All right, what's actually speaking to me? Because that's really what it comes down to, right? What is that thing that I get that feeling or that sensation that's like, oh, this is the one? Is it the pretty windows? Is it all the light that comes through? So when you have something that speaks directly to you, you're like, oh, it's got to be, this is the spot. This one's for me. And I also speak to so many hosts that find it's not that the problems go away, but they find that their business runs a lot smoother when they're focused on that one person. They know how to deliver services for that one person. So it's not a struggle where they're just all over the place trying to figure out, okay, and meet all these different people's needs, right? Meet that one avatar, meet their one need, and you're going to be that much more successful. And I do see some questions popping up in the Q&A. So again, don't be shy. Go ahead, click on it, upvote some of those. We'll make sure to ask the panelists as we get towards the end of our program here. All right, Terry, what mistakes have you made when it came to dealing with, those declines in inquiries or even in cancellations? What have you learned? What have you switched in your process thus far?
Well, first of all, Matthew, I never make mistakes. So
okay. All right. I make a lot, Terry. I'm not
I'd like to think I never make mistakes, right? I think what everyone has said right now really has hit a lot of the main points. The only thing I would really add is to optimize your listing. So if you're on Airbnb, it helps to change your listing title every now and then. It helps to upload new photos. Maybe your photos need to be brighter. Maybe you need more angles. And I like to add things to do in my city. So I'm in Charlotte. So I'll show a photo of the Panthers Stadium or maybe the downtown nighttime skylight as part of my pictures, so that when someone clicks on your listing and they're looking through the photos, they're getting an idea of not just your property, but the location, where it is they're coming to. And so tweaking your listing really helps a lot to boost it up in the search results. And then also maybe you have a little bit too firm of a cancellation policy. So try changing your cancellation policy and see if that helps boost more bookings that way.
Have you made any changes that didn't work out in your favor to that cancellation policy? We're going to talk about that a bit more, but some people get a bit aggressive there, right? Or some people are afraid of missing out in that way. So they hold on even tighter. And we know if you love something, you got to let it go, right?
Right. So I do have different cancellation policies depending on the property itself. I would suggest if you're brand new, you want to have the most flexible cancellation policy just to get yourself started. You want to start developing your presence online. So once you start getting good traction, you can maybe make your cancellation policy a little bit more firm. But that really is dependent on kind of your goals and what it is that you want to get out of your property. If you're good with taking a booking the day before check-in and you can afford to do that, then I'd say start out with that and then, try changing it a little bit further down the road, especially when seasons change and the demand increases, then you can probably be a little bit more strict.
Awesome. And Terry, I love that you mentioned that, right? Your goals. What are your goals as a host? What are you trying to accomplish? I find so many people miss out on that one thing. They're just in there. They're in their business a bunch. They can't sit back and really take a look at what am I trying to accomplish with this? And I find you get so much stress with that because you're looking for things that probably aren't even in line with what you're trying to achieve. And if you sat down and kind of paired those together, you'd be like, hey, I don't even need to don't go chasing waterfalls. Let's stick to those rivers and streams that you're used to. Nee, what do you got on this one before we move on to the next question?
Yeah. And thank you for kicking it back. It was just jogged by my memory from Terry and what Jasper said, which is to really try to optimize your listing and make it stand out, because Airbnb and the VRBOs of the world are really highlighting those properties. One other thing that you can do is when you do get a guest that stays and they have an awesome experience, if you have other properties, try to start linking those together. Hospitable has been working on and starting to release like a direct booking platform. And I've been utilizing that since late last year and actually leave QR codes at each of the properties that I manage, including the ones I own, that say, hey, book direct next time. And I've had a couple guests that are now booking direct. And if you're able to get those guests to look at you as, hey, this person's providing the experience that I like throughout your market, you can start to get reoccurring people that are not dependent on those platforms.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing, I just stayed in an Airbnb here, a local one. And the guy realized I was local, asked me what brought me to town. And right from there, he had an opportunity. Hey, so the next time you're coming, take a look at my portfolio. Here's our direct booking website if you want to go there. And I love that. That's absolutely what you should be doing, right? Because I had a good experience with him. So I don't want to go test out anywhere else and see what it's going to look like. I just want something that I know I can get in, get what I expect and leave. So that guy's probably got a customer for a couple of years at least. We'll see how that goes. Lauren, lots of properties. How often do you deal with cancellations?
I deal with them a lot, but we have a system that works, so it doesn't feel like it. And I think that's key. So in order to keep our heads, we actually have the same cancellation policy on all of our properties, because the way we have our messaging set up through Hospitable, that's what's easiest for us. But somebody mentioned that today, having a different cancellation for different properties. So I'm not discouraging you. I actually think that's probably a good tactic and one that I might look into. But our cancellation policy is, I believe it's the moderate on Airbnb, and then for our private bookings, we just do something similar. So it's a partial refund if it's more than 5 days, and if it's less than 5 days, it's a full refund if it's more than 5 days away, half refund if it's 5 days away, and then I think it switches at 3 days to no refund. And I'll actually drop my message that we have set up in Hospitable, what we use, in the chat, but I'll read it as well. So we just say, hey, since your stay is less than 5 days from now, cancellation policy is only going to, refund a portion of that. But I understand the situation. I always tell people that I understand, even if I don't, because I want to, right? I want to also see the human side of things, but I'm also running a business, and sometimes I'm running a business that isn't just mine, right? I'm managing for other property owners that have expectations too. So this is what we always tell them, is that, hey, let's work something out, right? Let's have you cancel now. And then if we can get it rebooked and I can make the same amount of money, then I'll refund you the rest of it. If not, then we won't be able to refund that. But it makes you feel like you're in something together, like you've made this little deal. And it's true. If I'm going to make the same amount of money, I'm okay to not do that. And most of the time you are, if you get lucky, but you can make the same amount. But most of the time, if we are rebooking a cancellation, we're doing so at a little bit lower rate. So sometimes we're able to keep that, sometimes we're not. It is a little bit of a manual process, but also sometimes people are like, well, don't worry about it. And we've even had people, just because we were kind and willing to kind of cut a deal with them, they're like, well, I appreciate the halfway, thanks so much. We're happy to book with you next time.
That's awesome. And I don't know if you've read it, but there's definitely some Chris Voss in there. Never Split the Difference. Have you read that one by any chance, Lauren? Yeah, absolutely. Does that sound fair, right? Asking for that check. I understand, making that human. If you haven't read Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, go for it. It was absolutely, I love it as a parent. I was I use some of these strategies with my 6 and 3-year-old, and man, I appreciate that book for sure. Thanks for sharing that, Lauren. And Jasper, right? With your business, past, present, do you deal with a lot of cancellations? You seeing hosts who deal with a lot of cancellations that come through your programs?
Yeah, we typically do not get a lot of cancellations, even though we do have a flexible cancellation policy. I guess our philosophy is if you make it easy for people to book, you just get more bookings. Usually the cancellations that we do get, it's typically quite easy for us. This might be just related to our markets, but it's usually quite easy for us to rebook. So yeah, it's not really a big issue for us. We did have a challenge a couple of weeks ago with the fires in California, where we actually had to reach out to our guests and tell them listen, we don't recommend you come up here because the fires are pretty close. There was a lot of smoke as well. So we actually had to tell our guests basically to cancel. But that's a situation that's not very common. One thing that I will mention that recently came up on one of our student calls is you should never cancel a booking online, right? You should never go on Airbnb and just cancel the booking for whatever reason, because Airbnb penalizes you for cancellations. If you have a legit reason to cancel, call Airbnb and they will cancel it for you. And then you won't get any of those penalties. We even had a host in our group who we gave this advice to, and she actually lost her superhost status 6 months ago because she canceled the booking. And the reason was she had a flooding. And so we told her, like, hey, that's not your fault. You're not canceling because you don't like the guest, or, you have some other plans or whatever. That's not, it's not something it's not your fault. So she called Airbnb, explained why she canceled the booking 6 months ago, and they actually removed the penalty.
Wow.
And she got her superhost status back within a few days. Right. So I think that's just something to keep in mind for everybody who's listening is, never cancel the booking. I like what Lauren said, where it's like, hey, you know what, like if we can rebook it, you get the full refund. Another thing you could do is you could ask people to move to another date. We've had that sometimes where a guest would say like, hey, you know what, like something happened, my sister got COVID or whatever that may be, and we can't make it this weekend. And then even though they can cancel for free, because we have the flexible cancellation policy, like I would ask them like, hey, would you, is there a different date that would work for you guys? And then, they would just rebook. We just move the dates on the reservation versus them canceling.
Wow.
Right. One thing that you do have to be a little bit careful with for the people who are using the moderate or the strict cancellation policy is that sometimes, and we don't deal with it because we are flexible, but what I hear sometimes from our students is that people will, in Lauren's situation, people will say like, hey, can I move my reservation a month out? And then because it's a month out, then they can cancel for free. So that's a trick that you have to, kind of watch out for, I guess.
Interesting. And that's great about calling, right? And speaking to someone instead of going through the automated process. We hear so many horror stories of people going online through Airbnb. That's a nice one there to share. So we appreciate that, Jasper. Nee, cancellation policies, right? I know you said you have 14 properties now, some you own, some you manage. What's the cancellation policy look across your portfolio? Does it differ? Does it stay the same? What's your strategy there?
Yeah, so it's very similar to what Lauren was talking about. It stays the same. We keep it right around that firm or moderate. The reason being, I tried to do flexible and it was almost on accident. So last year when I first got onto VRBO, right, I was so used to Airbnb, it was crushing it with one, that when I got my second, I was like, all right, let me make sure this is going to be booked up through the winter. Let me get on VRBO and kind of diversify. And when I was setting up VRBO, and for those that are just getting started in there, I'd highly recommend looking at some YouTube channels, kind of connecting with some of the people that are on this panel to kind of understand all the ins and outs. But long story short, I had it for flexible booking. There wasn't really any screening, and I had it for flexible cancellations. And what did you know that the first person that booked for like 30 days, had my calendar blocked, and then canceled a couple of days before because, hey, all my friends couldn't make it. And so from that day on, I completely switched it over to more of that moderate and firm, to where if you book and you need to cancel within 48 hours, you can do that. But if we start to get to that 14-day time frame and even closer, there's only going to be a partial refund and then no refund. And I try to be as transparent as possible, just relaying that information about our cancellation policy. I definitely need to copy Lauren's kind of message because that was awesome. We state something similar, just not as smooth. And we just try to, again, reason with the guest and make them understand that, hey, it's going to be hard to rebook this late in the game. And this was our policy up front, and we clearly stated that. And so that's kind of how we've dealt with it.
It's amazing. And thanks so much. Terry, you mentioned that you have some different properties that have different policies. Like, what does that look like for you? Why would they have, what's the reasoning here? And, any tests, or have you gone through trials and tribulations to get to the point where you're at when it comes to those cancellation policies?
Yes. So when we first started out, we had the most flexible cancellation. We allowed people to cancel within 24 hours of arrival. And, after you get those 1 or 2 cancellations the day before and you can't get your place rebooked, you kind of rethink that. So we switched over to the next level, which is 5 days prior to arrival, you're allowed to cancel for 100% refund. Now, it's easy for us to get a house here in South Charlotte rebooked a week in advance. It's a lot more difficult to get a lakefront property that is $800 a night to $1,000 a night rebooked last minute. So we decided to go with a more strict policy for those properties that are more expensive, they're larger homes. You know, we really want to make sure that the guest is sure that this is the property they want. And I really think the best way to avoid cancellations is to make sure that you are presenting your property and you are explaining exactly what your cancellation policy is, so that you're setting the expectation. When that guest books, they know exactly what they're getting into. And if they understand everything it is about their vacation, what they're renting, what the cancellation policy is, you're really decreasing the chance for them to cancel.
It's awesome. Amazing. Making it crystal clear. And that's the next question that I have. You know, how do you communicate that cancellation policy? So you're putting that and you're putting that everywhere that you can there, so that they can see it on the profile, they see it on the listing, right? It's clearly obvious for them. Lauren, how do you communicate? Because I know you had a great message there that you shared with us. So your communication is probably shining through. How is there anything that you do, you know, outside of the standards to make sure that that is something that's visible for your guests?
So we send so many, you're probably like, Lauren, stop sending messages, but all of the automated messages through Hospitable are gold. Use them. Guests love to be communicated with. So right after they've booked, we send a booking message to them. Just like Terry was saying, we send them actually a video walkthrough tour of the property that's not professional. It's like iPhone footage. And that sometimes, very occasionally, we'll see a cancellation after they viewed that video, but that's the way that they're actually going to see it when they check in, right? When they actually check in, it might be a little dim in this corner. It doesn't maybe have professional lighting that day. And so we use that after booking message to send them that video, which sometimes has triggered, once we added that, we'd occasionally see a cancellation right after that, which was great, because then people don't get there and then cancel, or, you know, have a different issue once they get there, or make something up. I know I should never do that, but sometimes they do. I use that message just to also reiterate the cancellation policy in a friendly way. I don't have it handy. I can't copy and paste it to me, but if you reach out, I can send it to you. But we essentially say, if you have any questions, even the night before your stay, please reach out to us. Let us know. We're always here to help. Something like that. So they know they don't have to like go hunting on Airbnb to find how to cancel, how to do this, how to do that. We always just encourage them to message us, because that gives us the opportunity to rebook them, to put them somewhere bigger if their group grows or shrinks, just like Jasper was saying. So then we have all the power if they know they can get the concierge service by messaging us, instead of trying to like find it and DIY it on Airbnb or VRBO or whatever the platform is.
That's amazing. I, you know, like I said, I'm doing a little traveling right now, so staying in a few Airbnbs. I think I've stayed in 4 or 5 recently in the past couple of months, and none of them have sent me any messages in any way, shape, or form to like prepare me for the stay or anything whatsoever. Obviously, I work for Hospitable, so it makes me cringe. I don't know if that's something here in Portugal, if that's like, hey, we're just Portuguese, you know, no faz mal is what we love to say around here. But I was like, all right, so how do I get the key? What do I do with it when I'm leaving? Oh, I'll be there. Leave it on the table. You know, that's it. But like having that information there, you know, you get excited, you're looking for the trip, you're trying to find your information. Where's the address? All right, where do I got to scroll? Did I miss it? All right. Have you been a guest on Airbnb and taken a look at how they find your address and what that looks like and what that feels like and how they find where your check-in information is on the app or, you know, on the site? If you haven't, go through that and see what it looks like for your guests, so that it's going to give you a little kick to make sure that you're sending some automated messages and you're getting across the board there. Jasper, for you all, right? It's super flexible. So do you do anything out of the ordinary? You kind of just, hey, here we are. And communicating your cancellation policy to guests.
Yeah. So just to be clear, you know, Airbnb shows the cancellation policy, right? For all listings. So the information is there on the Airbnb listing. Since we are flexible, you know, we never get any questions or issues. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes even though a guest can cancel for free, like they would still reach out to us, right? And ask like, hey, I can't make it this weekend. Like, what do I do? Right. So I am aware that like not everybody reads not everybody consumes that information, but I guess I guess for the ones that are using moderate and strict, it might be a good idea, like what Lauren's saying, of like, hey, just make sure that the guests, are aware of that information. For us, since it's flexible, it wouldn't really make sense to
Yeah,
just
yeah,
put,
yeah.
I mean, maybe that's something that we can use in our marketing more.
I was gonna say,
right?
like, as a marketing opportunity, right? Hey, we do have a flexible cancellation policy. I wonder what that would lead to, or what kind of
Yeah.
changes would make in your policy there. All right. So last minute cancellations. Ooh, those hurt. Right. We've heard a couple stories of that already. Nee, what do you got for those? Anything that switches for you when you get those last minute cancellations? Is there anything that you're trying to do to recoup those costs in any way, or hey, we just keep on moving?
Yeah, in the past, right before when we were using the flexible, that last minute cancellation definitely hurt. And it was more around your dynamic pricing, trying to make sure you can entice somebody else to come in and fill that void as much as possible. Nowadays, because we do have that more firm cancellation policy, we don't really get those last minute cancellations unless there's a major emergency or something where the person couldn't control. And at that point, we'll try to work with them. And if it's like a weekend booking, because I'm in the Atlanta market, a lot of people are looking to stay around here. So typically we can get those rebooked. But if it's a during the week booking, we may have to eat that loss if we're not able to work with the guest and kind of get them to see both sides of it as well.
Amazing, amazing. And what have we changed to avoid cancellations, right? Lauren, has there anything in your, like, early on, maybe we saw that, hey, we were doing ABC and that led to people canceling. Has anything changed, when it comes to managing your cancellation policy, that's maybe helped reduce the number of cancellations, or, anything that you've seen that's kind of helped avoid the conversation of cancellations overall?
So I have a lot of data to work with, which is really nice. So I can see, just like Jasper says, who's the avatar who's going to stay in your unit. I see my canceling avatar, and my canceling avatar, I'll share it, but I don't know if it's different everywhere or if it's more common, but they've booked for over a week, but less than a month. And they have booked a mid to low range price place, typically 3 bedrooms or smaller. I don't see cancellations as much on my bigger properties. And if I do, they're far enough in advance that I don't care. So I'm only really looking at my cancellation avatar that's going to hurt me, and they cancel within 2 weeks of their stay. If they, if they book 6 months from now and then they cancel 5 months from now, I don't even care. But that's my cancellation avatar. And I don't know, it does help to know that who that person is. And it's not like I'm looking at my calendar, so I'm like, oh, I see a 2-week stay and it's 2 weeks from now. I'm not scared of that. But for whatever reason, that helps me. Like, once you've had a few conversations about those, look back at who's canceled and what you've said to them. That's actually how we came up with the message that we shared here, is by looking back and saying, okay, we screwed up there. Like, we made them more mad by saying that. What should we have said? But if you can kind of figure out who's canceling or why, you might be able to edit that. And if you have a natural disaster going on or something like that, COVID, they had an illness, I think also addressing that could potentially help you with those cancellations. Just so if you name the issue, which my message doesn't do, mine's a general canned message, but if you can name the issue they're dealing with, I also think that helps with the experience.
And it seems like there's a common theme here with talking to people. Have a conversation with them, right? Share those things, share the information, the ways that you can help. That's the whole point of working at having an Airbnb, right? You're not at a hotel chain where this is it. It's got to be ABC. Like, hey, we're willing to work with you and see if we can make something out. Can we try some other dates? Like, I know you want to come back to the area. That's great. Have that conversation, open up. And Lauren, just looking back at that data, right? We have a wealth of information available to us, but sometimes we're so in the business that you can't take a step out and work on the business and see, okay, what is it that we've seen in the past that we can use to project or, see what's going to happen in the future there. Terry, how about you? Any tips on avoiding cancellations? Have you done anything differently that you've seen that's led to a decrease, or, avoiding those overall?
Yeah, I think what you said about communicating with your guests through every step of the process is really important. When they, receive their first welcome message from you, thanking them for their booking, and you make it more personal, I think it's a lot easier to work with people when they do have an emergency and for some reason they do need to cancel. A last minute cancellation when you have a strict policy is hard. But we always tell guests, even when we do have to stick with our policy, is that if they cancel and someone else rebooks their dates, we're happy to offer them a full refund.
That's great.
If you're able to rebook those dates, then that's wonderful. And we're always happy to refund in full when that does happen. So, keeping those lines of communication open are really important. And like I said before, setting the expectations ahead of time. I've been pretty lucky, and I don't know if it's just me and the fact that, I only have 14 properties, but we don't get a lot of cancellations.
Great.
Any cancellation we have gotten was COVID related, or like now we've got a couple of cancellations actually today for people who are coming from Florida. They're not able to travel. So in those situations, we kind of do take it on a case by case basis and try to work with people.
That's great. Yeah, I feel like lately, like there's been a lot of talk. I've been seeing a lot of chats about cancellations and people losing like big stays. So that's something that, it's maybe because we've had this event that it's been speaking to me here. Now, increasing bookings, right? Getting more inquiries. Jasper, any success with like advertising platforms? So it's something that I've, a lot of people are asking me about, like, hey, should I be throwing Facebook ads? Should I be, doing anything else to throw advertisements there? Do you guys, work with students? Anything that you talk about when it comes to the advertising platforms and pushing their properties out to the wider masses?
Yeah, I mean, marketing is a bit of a giant rabbit hole because there's so many different things that you could be doing, right? And the biggest mistake that we see people make is they want to be everywhere, and as a result, they don't get traction anywhere, right? So, my big advice for people would be, if you want to market outside of Airbnb, obviously there's other platforms like VRBO and Booking.com and such, but if you want to actually have a real organic marketing strategy, whether it's Instagram, whether it's like a website and doing SEO, I would say just choose one channel that you enjoy and go all in on that channel. And then the consistency is going to be key, right? You have to like consistently post on those channels every single day. And so before you even get into that, I would ask you want to make a plan of like, okay, what am I going to talk about for the next month, right? Every month, just schedule out 30 things that you want to share or post, because if you don't do that, I can guarantee you get into it and you do it for a few weeks, and then you miss one day because you don't know what to talk about. And then like you miss another day, and then before you know it, it's, you quit. Right. So that's the advice I would give.
Yeah. How about you, Nee? Have you worked on any advertising? Have you done anything for your properties where you're trying to go ahead and again, reach out to the masses as opposed to just directly on the channels?
Absolutely. And I think it's a lot of what Jasper just said, which is to make sure that you pick something and you stay consistent. What I started doing last year, and it wasn't even related to this, but now it's starting to equate to more bookings, because people know, hey, if I need to stay somewhere in Atlanta, hit up Nee. He's got a bunch of Airbnbs. You can come out this way. Is I host a mastermind group. And every Wednesday, I record those sessions and I release it as a podcast. And then I have a social media person that helps cut those up and use it for the different platforms. So I'm not spending all day trying to figure out a post. But in those meetings, we're able to talk through different strategies, and we're able to talk about different BNBs that I have coming online. And that's another way to market to where people are hitting me up when they're coming to this market before they even take a look at the platforms. Yeah. And so that's been helping a lot as well.
That's amazing. And I mean, I've said this on multiple classes before, and it just blows my mind that as simple as just posting to like your own personal audiences, right? For some of you that maybe don't have a larger following, like, do your Facebook friends know that you run short-term rentals or that you have a short-term rental? Do they know that you have a property? Like, share that, promote that, because they're going to know somebody, especially people coming to the area. Everybody's got family, there's events going around. So making sure that your personal network, not even your influencer type network, but those people around you know that you have a property, because they may not, and they may have somebody that wants to book with you. How about you, Terry? What's your strategy there when it comes to channels? Are you doing anything outside of just on the booking sites to try to attract a bit more?
Yeah, so I don't do any kind of paid advertising, but just like what you said, I tell everybody I know that I have Airbnbs in Charlotte, and I have, South Charlotte homes, lake properties. I even have one that I just started up in the Smoky Mountains. So share your listings on your social media platforms. Ask all your friends to click on your Airbnb link, favorite it and save it to their profile. That'll help boost your listing in the search results. And just, I'm also a part of a lot of local short-term rental Airbnb Facebook groups. So networking in those groups, talking to people helps a lot, because once people know that you've got a place in Charlotte or wherever it is you're at, you'll get people reaching out to you asking if your place is available.
I love that. Tell your friends to click on your link. I remember I used to have my Spotify playlist of all my friends' music, and it would just play 24 hours a day. Like, all right, we'll give them a few more pennies here. We'll just keep that stream train running. Lauren, we got a bunch of questions here about how did you find utility workers, oil workers? I mean, do you construction companies, like what are some of your tips and tricks there that you can share for people finding those folks who are traveling for work?
Perfect. Can I also add to the paid ad question? Because I do paid ads.
Go.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
yes.
I'll do
Then
both
please
fast.
do. Please do before we go on to this one. Let's do it.
Okay, paid ads, I have found the most effective if you are just paying for the lead. So as lovely, I use the Hospitable direct booking website. I have another website that I use as well, but they can't actually book the property on it. They can preview properties in the area, but then they have to reach out to us and contact us, because my business is all about that human element. And I think that's where the ad spend is worth it, is getting leads. If you can get them on the phone, like super old fashioned, right? You just want to call them and say, oh, looks like you're planning a trip to the area. What are you guys going to do? Who all's coming? Because then you build a relationship with them. And yes, it does take phone time, and it takes a little bit different staff training if you have somebody helping you with your bookings. Airbnb is just automated, right? They just drop in. This takes a little bit more, but you build the relationship, which means you get the return bookings, which financially for me is worth it. So if we just know where they're looking to come, then we look at our calendar quickly and we say, okay, what's open? Or we send them a couple of links. And then they only have like 3 options. Instead of Airbnb, they have every option available. They've talked to people, they know what restaurant to go to, and they have 3 options to book, which makes price less of an object. And it also means they'll probably book with you, because who knows what these places are like on Airbnb, and they already trust you. So not worth it to book all the way through, as far as I've seen for ad spend, but definitely worth it to find the people.
And when you mean not booking all the way through, like you're finding that those people who are clicking on your ads, they aren't booking, or that they were booking that you want to avoid when they did that reservation?
So when we had our website set up where it was kind of just like Airbnb, they would click into our website, they would see all of our properties, all of the availabilities, they would select their dates, check out, pay with a credit card. We wouldn't get people making it all the way through that process. But if they can see properties and we say, okay, inquire for availability, and we ask for their name, phone number, email address, then we call them back and we say, hey, let's talk about your trip, that is worth it. But just becoming like another listing platform, we saw people dropping off, they weren't booking, it wasn't worth the ad spend. So again, just my experience, but it might help.
Yeah. And what ads are you running, like on any platforms in particular?
So I do some organic stuff. So locally, I have an Instagram that reviews local restaurants and things to do. But our paid ad spend, so that's free-ish. I mean, sometimes I use employee time for that. And honestly, that's just a business expense for me. I run that personally. Just whenever I go to a new restaurant, I just take a quick video and I post it. And then our paid ad spend is Google ad spend, directed to a website that then has the viewable properties. And we have 150 properties, and we probably only have 10 on the website. We kind of highlight a property or 2 for each city we manage in. And then they just reach out from there and we say, oh, rats, the one online isn't available, but we have this other one. It's perfect. Let me tell you all about it. Let me send you pictures. Wow. So that's our strategy, and it's worked for us, and it's worth the ad spend. Other strategy wasn't so much.
Interesting. And I love that, running that other account, because it also can kind of mix into your properties, right? You can go back and forth. Hey, check out some things to do. You want some great restaurants? Actually, I just had a couple of good posts about these in the area. Awesome. Thank you much. Thank you so much for sharing. And now we'll go back. We're getting blown up here on the Q&A. They want to know, where do you find those utility workers, and how can we find those different groups that maybe come into our area?
For sure. It's very difficult. So most of them are placed through a staffing agency. So you need to figure out which staffing agency is placing who. The easiest way is to look back at past guests. And if you've had any past guests that have been there for corporate stays of any kind, whether they're a nurse, whoever they are, and especially if they've had a good experience, they are more than happy to talk to you. And you say, hey, I want to find more great guests like you. Compliment them. And they're going to say, okay, cool. This is Anna's name, right? She's at the hospital. She coordinates all of this. Or, hey, I was actually placed. I didn't even know where I booked. I just showed up because our staffing coordinator does that. There isn't like a one size fits all. It's definitely more custom, but learn your local market. If you're really stuck, you're brand new and you're blind and you're going into this, straight up what I suggest is go on Google, look at your property and start scrolling out. Once you get out like 2-3 blocks, see what businesses are highlighted, go out like another, so you have like a larger radius, maybe like a mile or two, and see what businesses are large and there, and just kind of call them. I know this is so weird, but this is what we did. We had 90% occupancy through COVID. And this is exactly what we did. As we scrolled out, we started calling companies. We're like, hey, this is so out of the blue, but we do corporate housing. We house professionals while they're here in town near you. Does your company need that, or do you know anyone who does? And you get a lot of no's, but then people are like, wait, I should save your number. I might do this. They've never received a phone call like that. Mm-hmm. So there's some ideas. The easiest way is through the employees, though. So if you can find somebody the first time, or maybe even a Facebook group, like Terry was saying, if you're new, you can say, hey, has anyone hosted a oil worker or somebody that works at the refinery down the road or at the water treatment plant, and see if anyone has, see if you can get their number and even share the information with that host as a return.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And yeah, reaching out to those local groups as well, right? Anybody have those strategies? And I know it can be intimidating to make those phone calls sometimes, but at the end of the day, what's the worst that's going to happen there, right? What's the worst that's going to happen when you go and cold call somebody? And it's not like you're trying to sell a service, right? Come join the sales world where you have to cold call somebody to sell. That's a bit more daunting, but trying to help somebody, and that's going to go a long way. They're going to think about you in the future, because just like Lauren said, they're not getting that phone call anywhere else. And it's going to make their job that much easier when they know somebody like Lauren and can just go through there really quickly. All right. So we talked about advertising platforms. We talked about, so booking.com was one that I saw in the chat there. Anybody here work with booking.com? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matthew, I would tell you that I've stayed away from booking.com just because it's a little difficult to get all your automations in. I tried it for one property earlier this summer, and I got 2 bookings immediately. It was amazing. They're like, hey, you're getting all these bookings coming in. And then I got on the phone with actually booking.com to say, hey, the automations aren't working. What's going on? And also to figure out the payment. And if you are unable to take credit card payments on site and things of that nature, you're severely limited, at least with the version that I was working with. So I had to shut that down pretty quickly until they kind of fixed that portion. But booking.com was an interesting experiment, hopefully able to use it in the future.
I know in the past it was really challenging, like seeing so many, because they didn't have that payment processing, right? So you're on your own. So people were on the hook essentially for reservations, credit card fraud. Like I heard so many horror stories when I joined about booking.com, 4 or 5 years ago. It was like, wow, why would anybody do that? It seems like it's gotten better, right? I know that they're offering more services for hosts. They're more streamlined. They were at the VRWS recently, and they said their entire goal is US first. So everything that they're doing with the organization, their focus is US first. So how can we make it so that we can add this feature to the US first to broaden our market share? So maybe not anytime soon, but I definitely see with their marketing strategy and what they're trying to incorporate, there's going to be, an increase in booking.com. Because the second thing that they talked about was, well, what do you say when hosts go and give the thumbs down to booking.com? He said, we know, and it's justified. But with our new strategy, US first, we're going to be making a lot of changes for the hosting experience. I think they just rolled out request to book or something along those lines. Like they added a new feature, or they're beta testing some new features that are more in line with what you see on Airbnb. So that'll be super interesting there. Yeah, so we got a bunch of thumbs down there for booking.com. How about some of those other channels? I know recently one of our developers who's working on the iCal feed, he came back and he said, Furnished Finder. I'm talking to so many hosts on Furnished Finder and they get so many stays over 30 days. And I was like, yeah, that's one of the reasons why you use Furnished Finder is for some of those, people who are traveling, people who are looking for some of the longer stays than just a traditional weekend stay. So anybody have any additional channels that are kind of outside the mainstream that they're pushing or that, they're building a lot of traction on thus far? How about you, Jasper? What do you guys promote out there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like we are purely focused on Airbnb and direct bookings at the moment. So what we do is we source the guests through Airbnb, we get their information, and then we try to get them to book direct. We email all of our past guests. But I can share one thing that some of our students had amazing success with in the last couple of months, which is a platform called Peerspace. And Peerspace it's not a platform where people book nightly stays. It's a platform where people book stays for a few hours or an entire day, but where they're gonna hold some sort of event or like a photo shoot. And the beauty of that is that, number one, the rates that some of these companies pay to rent your property during the day is pretty crazy. From what I've seen. Again, I haven't used it, so just to be transparent. But yeah, I see people having a lot of success with that, and the beauty of it as well is that typically businesses that look for like a place to hold a workshop or a meeting or a photo shoot and those things, they're typically looking for weekdays. Right. So it could be a really good combination if you're in that seasonal market where the weekends are always booked, but then the weekdays are very slow.
That's awesome. I just thought of you right away, right? Atlanta during the week. We got to get up on there. Terry, how about you? Any additional channels that you've utilized that have driven some revenue?
Well, I would just want to say that I literally just had a booking off of Peerspace yesterday. Wow. I charge $400 to $500 a night at one of my houses, and this photographer booked it for 4 hours at $100 an hour. So, they came in, they did their photo shoot, they left. It was as if they had never been there. So that's a really great way to make some extra money. Another new kind of booking platform geared towards women is called Go Lightly. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it promotes travel for women. So if you're a lone female traveler, all the properties are hosted by women, and the main booking guest must also be a female. So men are allowed to travel with the main booking guest, but it's to help promote kind of safety for those female travelers. So that's another site that's gaining traction. I have a couple of mine on there, and unfortunately I haven't seen any bookings come from that site. And I have heard of some other ones that, I haven't really tried too much, but I think these event rental spaces are some good ones that are getting a lot more traction.
Absolutely. And, going hand in hand, Hospitable is working on releasing the iCal connection so that you'll be able to connect a lot of these different channels to Hospitable. We'll be able to pull reservation details. We'll be able to block off some dates for you on some additional channels. So offering more functionality with some of these sites. We just started testing it out where we're reading iCals. So for some of our beta testers, they're adding their iCal links for things like Furnished Finder so that we can learn the information that's available to us and then start populating it within our system. So that's something that is in development. It's in beta, I believe, right now as we're going. So that's great. One last one, Nee. Any other channels that you're using, or are you guys just sticking to Airbnb and Vrbo there?
So we're using pretty much all the ones that were just mentioned. I use Furnished Finder for mine personally, and then I'll leave it up to the owners if they want to pay the extra fee for that. And outside of Peerspace, there's also a site called Gigster, which is very similar, and have been able to get some bookings from there and actually convert them into people that were hosting an event and then paid the nightly rate to stay there because they're like, hey, it makes sense. If we're going to host something in the backyard, why not stay here as well? So you can definitely boost your income there.
That's amazing. And last but certainly not least, Lauren, what are your channel strategies here?
Sure. I'm always down to try something, but when things are new, I only post like 2 properties, like 1 or 2. So when somebody emails me randomly is like, I'm starting my own Airbnb, it's called this, I'll list something, but I'll list like one or two because I know it makes me stand out that I'm there. And I just always see if there's an opportunity in the description to just say like, hey, I have more properties. And so then I'm not spending all of this time, effort, doing these things because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of alternative ones. I have not done this because I don't have any properties that are this way, but ADA accessible is gold. There's so much need and so much money in wheelchair accessible stays. And since Airbnb made it really difficult where you have to like verify everything with photos and have the verification team go through, there's a lot of people who stay in a wheelchair who don't care for what Airbnb just did with the verification process. They just want to be able to stay somewhere. And there's so little ADA housing. There is a listing platform for ADA housing, and I don't remember it off the top of my head. But if you have a place where you could be wheelchair accessible, even if it's not perfect, I would try, because I've had two friends do it, just one property each, and their nightly rate has like doubled or tripled just because the availability is so low. Other places, film commissions. I actually do a bit of commercial filming in a number of our properties. You can list your property very easily on the film commission for your state. Usually they only even like allow you to have like 10 pictures. It's a quick list, usually 15, 20 minutes. If you can also get hooked up, if you've ever had anyone inquire with a legitimate filming request, ask if you can, be passed around the community. There's also Facebook pages for local like film places and they always need a place to shoot or film.
All right. Amazing. You all are incredible. Thank you so much for sharing all that. A wealth of information for all of you in the audience. Some great tips and strategies there. Go check out some of those additional platforms, right? Take some of those things into consideration when you're working on your cancellation policy. I mean, the avatar, even the cancellation avatar, that's an interesting one. That's one I haven't heard before. But yeah, listening to Jasper kind of talk about that avatar and just focusing your business, it seems like it's just an absolute win there for you. And it seems like we're coming from a place of abundance into the scarcity there, right? Like, hey, we're looking for this person. We know they're out there, as opposed to, hey, who can we get? Because we're trying to get anybody in here. So that's our time for today. Our time's come to an end. So first and foremost, thank you to the panel for taking part today, sharing with us, giving us your time and giving us your insights. That's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you all very much. More importantly, thank you all for joining us here today, being such an active audience. We appreciate your questions. We appreciate your comments there. And, it really helps the conversation going here. If you've enjoyed tonight's event, early November, we're going to have a right after, a week after the VRMA or so, we'll join us early November after the VRMA for our Hospitable Masterclass with Tony Robinson, who's a founding member at Alpha Greek Capital. We're going to talk about how to analyze your short-term rental investments, how to establish long-term reliable partnerships, and tips and tricks for successful short-term rental investments and much, much more. He's got some great information that he's going to share. So definitely make sure to join us. And if you're attending the VRMA in Vegas, be sure to come by booth 231 to say hello to me and the rest of the team. We're going to have some great hospitable swag out there for you. And there's going to be an opportunity to come join us for something very special we're planning for one of the nights out there in Vegas. So that's all from me. It's time for me to go and put the girls to bed. Solana and Aurelia say goodnight. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Jasper. Thank you, Lauren. And thank you, Nee. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, evening, morning, maybe even. We appreciate you all. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
And panelists, we're just going to drop off here. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hospitable hearts here. You guys have been amazing. Have a great rest of your evenings now. Ciao, ciao.
See you, everybody.
Bye now.